Awesome. All right, we're going to kick today off. We're going to kick today off with something incredibly special. Incredibly special. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't seem like a salty old bastard, but I kind of am.
No, you seem like one.
And has anybody felt the annoyance at marketing companies lately? Oh, yeah, I just brought the room down. Met Tommy Richardson. I met Tommy Richardson because Tommy was trying to grow personally, and he reached out to us, and he began working with Jim. And then Jim says, hey, I want you to talk to this guy. So I get on with Tommy Richardson, a marketing guy, and I'll be honest, I was a little hard on him. I was a little hard on him, just like I am on a lot of people who make a lot of claims. Tommy Richardson shortly thereafter joined our team because he is a dynamic, passionate, intelligent human being. Tommy has a story that isn't known by many, and Tommy has done amazing things for others in his life, and he's done amazing things for our company and for me personally. And Tommy's going to share something with you today, and I want you to keep your eyes open, I want you to keep your hearts open, and most of all, your ears. Would you please welcome to the stage Mr. Tommy Richardson.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Whew. What's going on? Great. Awesome. Appreciate that. What's going on? All right. So as Nathan said, my name is Tommy Richardson. I'm the marketing coach here at Contractor Coach Pro. Before I get started, I want to thank Jim and Chuck and Nathan for giving me the opportunity to be able to talk today. Let's give them a round of applause for yesterday. So, about 15 years ago, something happened to me that completely changed my life forever. How many of us in the room today have had something happen to them that drastically changed their life forever? As you can see with my right hand, I got injured when I was in Iraq, but we'll get to that story here in just a minute. What I don't want you to hear today is a really cool story about something that happened to me. What I want you to hear is how I overcame that. Because I believe we all have bad things that happen to us in life. I believe that there's a way to overcome these things, and I believe that you can move forward and you can be better on the backside of it. But before we get started, I want you to understand the importance of time to me, because I feel like time is very important. So July 29th, 1988, that's the day I was born. I'd like to think that's a pretty important day. August 15th of 94, I got baptized. January 21st, 1999, that's when my sister was born. June 6th, 2006, that's the day I graduated from high school. Yes, I graduated on 6/6/6. That is true. January 11th, 2008, that's the day I left to go to basic training. Does anybody remember what they were doing on December 24th, 2008? I didn't think so. Most likely you were getting ready for Christmas the next day, right? Whether you were putting presents under the tree for Santa Claus for your kids, or you were at a Christmas Eve service at church, but you were doing something to get ready for Christmas. That's where I was. That is Baghdad, Iraq, for those who have never been there before. It is a very big city. It is a very busy city. I was staying in a room that looked something like that right there. Very small. There was only about 4 of us in there. Now that gentleman that you see on the left-hand side with his back to the door, that's about where I was standing that night. I was messing around. I was trying to get my stuff ready for the next day. And then this right here got thrown into the room. For those of you who do not know what this is a blasting cap. The blasting cap is roughly 2.5 inches long. It is very sensitive. There's 3 different types of blasting caps. There's a non-electric, electric, and a fuse cap, and they can be set off through heat, static electricity, or radio frequency. Well, the one that got thrown into my room was an electric blasting cap. It only takes 1.5 volts to set off an electric blasting cap. So, what happened next? I reached down, because it was in between my feet after I turned around, and when I reached down to pick it up, I got to about right here, and then it went boom! Everything went white. My ears were ringing. And I was just standing in the room, turning in a circle, just like this right here. Don't ask me why, that's just what I was doing. My first thought was, I'm blind, because all I could see was white. Well, then eyesight started coming back a little bit. I started to be able to see everything that was going on. And I looked over on the bed that was across from me, and it was the other team leader that was in our squad. His name was Dobbs. I saw him laying down on the bed. So I was like, man, he got messed up. I need to make sure he's okay. So I ran over there to make sure he was okay. I took one step and I did this right here. And that's when I saw that I was the one who was actually injured and there was blood everywhere. I stopped in my tracks. And then that's when my platoon sergeant walked into the room. I saw his face and that let me know that I was messed up. So 3 things then happened before I got out of Iraq. Number 1 is they put the tourniquet on my arm to stop the bleeding. Is anybody in here familiar with what a tourniquet is? Okay, for those of you who don't know what a tourniquet is, you put it on and you twist it really, really tight to make the blood flow stop so you stop bleeding. That's essentially what a blasting, or God bless, that's essentially what a tourniquet is. So they put that on, they get me over to the medics. I'm laying down with the medics, they're shooting me with pain medicine, trying to get the pain to go away. And I start shaking my arm. I'm like, guys, I can't feel my right arm. I cannot feel it. I have no, like, it's starting to turn blue. They're like, well, how long has the tourniquet been on? My platoon sergeant said about 23 minutes. Anybody who knows anything about a tourniquet, that's not how long a tourniquet is supposed to be on your arm, or on any extremity for that matter. So they loosened it up, let the blood flow back in, and then they moved it to where it was supposed to be, which was below my elbow. They get me out, they put me in a Black Hawk. Now, when they lay me down in that Black Hawk, it's kind of like an army cot, if you know what I'm talking about, the way that you lay down inside of those things, at least the one that I was on. I laid down in it, they strapped me in, and I have my hands kind of like this right here, and I'm laying down, but I can see just enough out of the front of the Black Hawk to see what's going on. Now, this is at night, by the way, when this happened. So as we're taking off, I'm leaning out the front so I can see what's going on, and I see a streak of fire coming right out our Black Hawk. Somebody had shot an RPG at our Black Hawk. Well, my pilot, thank God for him, I don't know who he is, but he was able to get out of the way, and I heard the RPG go underneath me while I was in the Black Hawk. Between the blasting cap, the tourniquet, and the RPG, I should not be alive right now. I should not be standing in front of you, because the blasting cap should have blinded me, and it should have taken off the right side of my face, but it didn't. The tourniquet, I should have lost my right arm, but I didn't. The RPG that was fired at the Black Hawk, I should have died, but I didn't. And it took me a long time to begin to realize that. So I go from Baghdad to Tikrit to Landstuhl, Germany to Andrews Air Force Base, and then I eventually end up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I was stationed with the 82nd Airborne. So once I get home, I heard that, airborne. So once I get back home, I'm assuming because somebody said who over here, you were in the Army. Is that correct? There you go. So you understand what a profile is when they put you on a profile. For those of you who don't know what a profile is, for instance, if you get sick, like you get the flu or something like that, you go to the doctor, they put you on a profile, and basically that means you can't do anything while you're sick until you get better, right? That's essentially what it is. For instance, I broke my ribs one time, and they put me on a no PT profile. So I just couldn't do PT, but I could do everything else. PT is physical training. Well, mine was a little bit different when I came home from Iraq. They put me on what's called a dead man profile. That's not the terminology that a bunch of people really hear, but this is what we called it in the Army. So a dead man profile means that a soldier cannot have or participate in any physical training. Depending on the injury or condition the soldier has, this particular profile may dictate how long the soldier may stand per hour, how far they can walk if at all, or even how much weight a soldier can bear. Basically, I was allowed to do what a dead man does. I was allowed to lay there. That's all they let me do. I wasn't allowed to show up the formation. I wasn't allowed to take part in PT. I wasn't allowed to go to the grocery store. I had to have somebody else go do that for me. And along the way, I'm also learning how to function with a little bit less on my right hand. I can't button up my shirt. You know how hard that is to do when you don't have fingertips? It's pretty stinking hard. I couldn't even cut my food. The most humble moment I ever had is when I was 20 years old. I went to a steakhouse with my parents and my mom had to cut my food for me at 20 years old. It's the most humbling experience I had throughout the process of healing. So when they took my purpose away, my purpose in life was to be a soldier. My plan is this was going to be my career. I was going to be here for 25 years. I never had the intention of ever standing in front of you guys. But I am. So what did I do? Well, they say when you join the military, you either find Jesus or you find alcohol. Well, I knew Jesus before I got there. I wanted to see what this alcohol thing was all about. So that's exactly what I did. Every single day for 6 months, I had 12 to 18 pack of beer and Papa John's pizza every single day. That's all I did, day in and day out. Never left my hotel room, never went to formation, never hung out with any friends, never did any of that. My friends are in Iraq. I don't want to know the people that I'm with. I'm supposed to be over there with them. Until one morning, about 6 months later, I woke up, and as I was pouring Jack Daniels into my coffee, I realized that I had a problem. And it was that day that I said, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm better than this. There's people around me that love me, that want me to get better. I've got to heal. I know I'm getting out of the military. They've already told me that. And if I want to get out and move on with my life, I need to start getting better. And I basically flipped the middle finger to the dead man profile and started doing whatever I wanted to do. If I got hurt, I got hurt. I got back to running again. I got back to working out again. I started meeting people that was in the Wounded Warrior Battalion with me. And I started making myself better from a physical standpoint so I just didn't feel like trash anymore. February 2010, that's the month that I got out of the military. So I didn't really spend a whole lot of time. I was only there for about 2-ish years, but I got medically discharged. And one of the things that I learned after I got out is, okay, I'm physically healed. I can do everything that I used to be able to do. I'm back to working out again. There's not much, physically speaking, that I can't do that I couldn't do beforehand. But there was something right here that needed to change. Because I still hadn't quite found a purpose yet. I still hadn't been able to mentally move past what had happened to me because my identity was wrapped up in being a soldier, and then my identity was wrapped up in a dead man profile that I couldn't do anything, and I had to overcome all of this. So instead of the alcohol side this go around, I turned back to what I already knew. And that was Jesus. So for those of you who know me, you know that I like to read the Bible every once in a while. By every once in a while, I try to do it every day. So I go back to the Bible and I'm like, okay, what does the Bible say about when you face hard times? Well, James 1:2 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops maturity, which gives you perseverance. So you're not lacking anything. See, I'm convinced and I believe that if you can't move past what has happened to you in your past, it's because you never took step one. You never found joy in the trial. Because see, you can't move forward until you develop the perseverance that is needed to overcome that to get to the next step of your life. If you're wondering why maybe you haven't moved forward, maybe it's because we haven't addressed what's happened to us in the past. Because I had to do that. I had to look at this blasting cap and just be like, okay, yeah, it happened. And it sucks. My life is forever changed. But I can't live there. I'm only 21 years old. Statistically speaking, I'm only 25% of the way through my life. What am I going to do for the next 63 years? Am I just going to sit here and feel sorry for myself, or am I actually going to get up and go do something? So I had to find joy in that, which for me was I had to just go get a job. I had to go get a job that gave me another purpose. The second thing that I did is I had to seek wisdom. How many of you are here with your team right now? Every single one of you have a team around you that can help you out, because when I think wisdom, I think going to go find people that can hold me accountable, that love me. Every single person that is sitting with you right now is here to make themselves better, and they're also here to help hold you accountable to what you're learning while you're here. They're also there for you for more than just work. These people love you. They want you. Man, let me tell you something. When I joined Contractor Coach Pro, I thought I was taking a job. That's what I believed. I learned very quickly, because of the culture at that company, that they care about me as an individual more than they care about how much money I can make for them. And I guarantee you it's the same thing with every single one of you that are in this room right now. They want to see you grow. They want to see you get better. But as I was going through this and seeking wisdom, I'm also trying to figure out, well, why did this happen to me? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it? Because if it takes 1.5 volts to set off a blasting cap, and the human body at a minimum carries 7 volts, how many people's hands touched that blasting cap before it got to mine? And why didn't it blow up in their hand, but it blew up in my hand? Because the blasting cap was meant for me from the day that it was made. That's why. It was intended for me all along. See, some of you have had things happen to you in your life, and when the blasting cap was in somebody else's hand, it did nothing. But when it got to your hand, that's when it blew up and things started changing. And it doesn't make sense. It makes 0 sense whatsoever. But once I realized that it was meant for me, that's when I could begin to realize that I was never where I was supposed to be to begin with. My plan in life, like I said earlier, was to be full-time military. I was still going to be there to this day. But God had different plans for me. That was a season of my life where I learned discipline, I learned maturity, I learned perseverance, I learned work ethic, because Lord knows if you'd have known me before I went to the military, I needed every single one of those because I was pretty daggone lazy. I was 270 pounds with a 42-inch waist. I needed to start taking care of myself. And I learned all of those things, but I had to learn those in that moment for a period of time to get me to where I am today. Last thing I had to do, and this was the hardest one, guys, is I had to learn how to forgive. The one thing I didn't tell you about my story is the Taliban did not throw that blasting cap into my room. My platoon sergeant threw the blasting cap in my room. Somebody that I trusted, somebody that I respected, is the one that caused this to happen to me. And a couple months after I got back, I had a conversation with him. I was like, Sergeant, why'd you do it? I got to know why, because I got to be able to move past this. And he said, it was in a can that was marked as duds. And I thought it would be funny to throw it in there. So all along, it was a complete accident. He never intended for me to get hurt. But it happened. That means somebody else tried to make it explode and didn't. That's the only way you find out if something that's a dud is you try to blow it up, right? That means they've tried to do it before, which drove home to me more that that blasting cap was meant for me from the very beginning, because it wasn't meant the first time they tried to explode it. Go back to the importance of time a little bit. June 2011, I got accepted to Liberty University. May 9th, 2015, I graduated from Liberty University, and on that same day, I also got engaged to my lovely wife, Alex, who's sitting back there in the back. November 21st, 2015, that's when we got married. We don't like to waste a whole lot of time. We took 6 months to plan a wedding from a state away because we are gluttons for punishment. August 2018, that's when I started working with Ready Roofing. as their marketing manager. I told you the month and the year that I got out, but this is the day that I got out. I saved this for a reason. This day right here is more important to me than any other day in this world. Because February 14, 2010, the day that I got out of the military, that's when my life as a soldier ended and my life as a civilian began. But on February 14, 2019, that's when another life began for me. That little girl right there, man. It was on that day that I realized that if I don't keep growing and I don't keep doing stuff and I don't give it everything that I have, she's the one who's going to suffer, not me. And I also realized that that blasting cap wasn't meant for me. It was also meant for her. Because if it would have never gone off in my hand, she wouldn't be here. This next picture right here, this is my great-grandmother, Elise's great-great-grandmother. When Granny Ruby found out that we were having Elise, she said, I'm going to make it to where I can hold my great-great-granddaughter. This right here was taken about 2-3 months after she was born, so probably May or June time frame of 2019. Elise will never remember this photo, but Granny Ruby got the opportunity to hold 5 generations of Richardsons. 2 months later, she passed away. That blasting cap was also meant for Granny Ruby. Because without that going off, she would not have had a reason to live for an extra 9 months, and our family would have never been able to get that extra 9 months of life out of her, to develop those memories and continue to go to her house every single Sunday for Sunday lunch. In August of 2020, I started Nubs Media. Now, a lot of people told me, they were like, hey man, Nubs Media, that's a pretty cool branding name. I'm like, yes it is. But the last part of me overcoming what happened to me in Iraq was disassociation. Every time I looked at my hand, I felt pain, I felt lying, I felt deceit. But I started Nubs Media in August of 2020 because I had to disassociate when I look at my hand to something positive. And I'd always wanted to own a company. I told my wife on our very first date that we went on, I said, I will own a company one day. I don't know what it's going to be in and I don't know when it's going to happen, but one day I will own a company. And by God, that's exactly what I did. Because I sold that company in October of 2022 last year. I ran a successful company, I sold that company, but right before that, I started working at Contractor Coach Pro, and in May 22nd of 2021, that's when my second child was born, Luke. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to write down 3 names. I want you to write down 3 names of people where their lives would forever be changed if you could overcome some of these bad things that have happened to you and lean into who it is that you were meant to be. Who are those 3 people? For me, it's my wife, it's my kids, and as you saw, it was my great-grandmother. And I'm sure I've affected other people with that along the way who are in my family and closer to me. But I just want you to come up with 3. The last thing we're going to do is this. This golf ball right here in my hands, it's worth what, $4 or $5? Would you agree with that? Maybe $4 or $5? How much is it worth if you put it in the hands of Tiger Woods? A lot more than $4, right? It's probably worth what, 60, 70, $100 million? Just depends on whose hands it's in, right? This baseball, what, 10, 15 bucks you can buy one of these? I don't know, I haven't bought a baseball in years. That's what it's worth in my hands. You put it in the hands of Nolan Ryan, how much is this baseball worth all of a sudden? Millions of dollars. This top rep manual is worth what, Michelle? 10 bucks? 10 bucks or so? That's what it's worth in my hands. What's it worth in your hands? What's it worth to you? Could it change your life if you take it home and you study it and you apply it? How much is this going to be worth to you one day? Guys, if y'all ever need anything, there's my phone number, there's my email address. I'm more than happy to talk to any of you about anything. Feel free to reach out to me. Again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I love every one of you. And come on up.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Richardson.
Thank you. There's that.
Man, I'll be honest, I still have some goosebumps. I still have some goosebumps.
Awesome, dude.